Welcome to the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast with your hosts, Matt High, Richie Kopech, and Joe Capozzi. Welcome to the lair. And welcome into another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. We got everyone in the house tonight, Joe and Rich. I'm your host, Matt High, ready to rock out a mock draft, the first of the year. Very excited for this one. Joe, how are you doing tonight?
I could be better, Matt. All this news coming out makes me
We'll
want
get
to
into
cry, and I cried a little bit at work, maybe. So
It's all right. It's a safe space. Safe space.
thank you.
How about you, Rich? I know you're not really affected by the news too much, but how are we doing?
Uh, not too much as far as on my end, as far as the news goes. So I'm just kind of looking at my teams, and it's that time of the year where we're going to dissect and see really what's working and what's not working. So for me, I'm in a little bit of a situation in a couple of leagues, and I'd like to address that now before the season starts. So yeah, no, but overall, football's around the corner. Very excited.
It's going to be a wonderful time where we all go crazy over analyzing every little detail, every bit of news in preseason. Oh my God, this guy's not on the field, and what's that mean? It happens every year. We all do it. We're all guilty. Just kind of roll with the punches and see how things shake out. But at the top of the show, we're going to do one of my favorite quick questions because I really like hearing what other people like to do in drafts. But I'm going to ask you first, Rich. Is there a spot? So, what's your favorite spot going into this year to draft in? Are you an early guy, mid, late, at the turn? What are you thinking?
Well, it's a tough year this year, I will say that. There is definitely some promising picks you could say up front, right? I mean, there's always a value at the 101. I think we know there's some solidified guys there, but I think if I have to pick a spot, I don't mind being at the mid, at the 105 through 107 range. I think there is a good amount of value there as far as players that'll fall in your lap. Players that I think other people are a little bit worried about. There's a lot of what ifs and yada yada, but for the most part, I think that mid range really gives you a solid team. I mean, you may not get that strictly like every or some player that you really feel set on, but I mean, you could take it a lot of ways in that 105 to 107, and you could actually end up with a very solid team.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting where you can go. I mean, every year, half the first round seems to have some sort of bust potential. So you're just trying not to be that guy, but it happens to all of us, whether we want it to or not. So just how fantasy works. What about you, Joe?
I like, especially in this draft. I'm just looking at the guys outside of obviously like being one or two for grabbing your known studs. I think I'd rather be towards the end, like picks 10 through 12. There's a couple guys that I feel like I could get there that I'm happy with as a first round pick, and then immediately pick another person that I could honestly see even being another first round pick and setting your team up that way.
Yeah, that's kind of where I stand. It's nice having a top three pick because you get, some superstars, but I've kind of done a couple mocks of my own, and I really enjoy how my teams, ends up when I'm drafting towards the 1-2 turn because you get two, top 20 picks, top 15 picks, depending on where you're at. And I like the way the middle rounds work out when I'm at that spot because there's a lot of guys that I'm a little bit higher on in that range. So, I don't mind taking the shot on some of them. And I basically hammer those guys every draft if I'm in that spot. Otherwise, when I'm closer to the front of the draft, you got to reach a little bit just because you have so many picks in between yours. So it's kind of just it's a difference of what you like. Like first two rounds are usually pretty good. It's when you get into the meat of the rounds, rounds 3 through like 7 or 8. Those are where it gets a little dicey. So, but all right, now without further ado, let's go into the news. Today was a pretty rough day. We're recording this on Wednesday, August 16th. So if you're watching this tomorrow when it posts, you will already have heard that Traylon Burks went down with an injury today. There was a LCL sprain, so missing potentially a couple weeks. The Titans did get DeAndre Hopkins, so he's there now to kind of shore up a little bit. Kyle Phillips is a name to keep an eye out for. He's probably going to be their main slot guy, and then Nick Westbrook Akine are also there. So we'll see how that shakes out. It's going to be a little rough sledding uh, in the beginning couple weeks if Traylon Burks is not out. That offense is. I can see them going either way. They can either show up and do pretty well, or they can kind of come out stale and fall on their faces. So, what any concern or worry about Traylon Burks for the season, or is this kind of just we'll have to wait and see? What do you guys think? I know how you feel, Joe.
I I mean, I think it was just. I mean, it's an unfortunate injury, but I mean, he still caught the touchdown on that play when he got hurt. I watched the video. He avoided like a major injury, which is good. It's nothing like torn or anything like that. Still going to be bummed because he was doing so well in camp. The miss seem I was excited to see him play in preseason and get ready for week one. I'm hoping he's going to be good for week one. Fingers crossed, but we'll see. At least he avoided long term damage, which is the main thing for me. So
Yeah. So, next bit of news. So, who wants to go first? Who should I target first? Because both of you guys have these guys in our dynasty league. So, let's pick on Rich for right now. Ramondre Stevenson now has a running back mate in the room. Zeke Elliott signed a contract with the Patriots to join that backfield. And although I do think Zeke is beyond past his prime, he still will have a role in that offense. And that role will be short yardage situations and at the goal line, which potentially limits the upside for Ramondre Stevenson. So what do you think about that signing, Rich?
Uh, all right, all right, all right. Well, I will say that I was a little bit upset, of course. I mean, I thought for a little bit or for a long while there, they weren't going to add anybody, but I knew in the back of my mind that there probably would be some depth added, and that's exactly where I see it, is that Elliott to me is really just more of a complementary piece at this point in his career than he is really someone that's going to take away a good amount from Ramondre. Um, I do see Ramondre as still the top option there. So to me, I mean, I understand Elliott is Elliott. He's a great player and all that. So there's questions as far as the injuries, as far as anybody past him with Ty Montgomery, Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris. There's a couple questions there. I mean, it sounds like we have some injuries across there. So it's to me, it's all gonna lean on Ramondre and Ezekiel Elliott. How much Ezekiel Elliott's going to take away, I'm not exactly sure just yet. But for what it is, I'm going to keep the positive note here, and I will say that I am still full steam ahead on Ramondre Stevenson. I love what I've heard from the past, from the coaching staff over there, from Bill Belichick himself. So, I mean, they run it through him. Yeah, I don't really think there's going to be that much taken away from him where he's going to be irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't think he will be irrelevant, but I mean Zeke is he's gonna have that goal line role, which that's where his fantasy value is gonna be, But
I
at the
just
same
don't
time,
I
it's
just don't know if it's going to be that. Like I can argue with you that I don't really see him coming into it and taking completely every goal line touch away. I mean, Ramondre should still get the first and down looks, and at that point, I mean, if they're for what it is, I mean, Ramondre also knows how to catch the ball too. So in a third down sense, there is still a need for Ramondre to be on the field. So I don't know. I don't necessarily see Ezekiel really being anything more than just like a insurance piece at this point. Call me crazy.
Yeah, like for me, he's gonna have a role similar to what he had in Dallas, I think last year. Less, obviously, but similar where they don't have to use Ramondre every single down. Like he's not going to be a workhorse back like he was last year, unless he
Well,
comes
let
out
me
and just falls flat on his face.
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Last season, right? Where was Ezekiel Elliott? On the
What do you
Cowboys,
mean?
right?
Look, yeah,
Who also was on the Cowboys? Tony Pollard.
I
How did
understand.
Tony
Yeah,
Pollard do
that's
last season?
that's where my point is. Where Zeke in a limited role, it didn't really affect Tony Pollard. That's kind of the case for Ramondre Stevenson still for me. I'm still on him. It's just
Yeah,
he takes a little bit. He'll get
I
bumped
do
down just
understand that.
a tad. That's all. It's
I
just a
agree
little
with
bit
you.
more risk with that. But
100%.
still, I'm with
100%.
you. Ramondre Stevenson,
Yeah,
full steam ahead.
I don't think it changes his floor, but it affects his ceiling.
Yes,
Correct.
exactly.
Absolutely. Well put, Joe. Well put.
Yeah.
That is
Speaking
exactly the
of
way I would view that.
speaking of floor and ceiling, Brees Hall also has someone that joined him. Dalvin Cook signed a 1 year, $7 million guaranteed deal worth up to I think it was like 8.6 million to join the Jets for their Super Bowl run, as everyone thinks they're going to. That's for me. It's not the best news for Brees Hall, obviously, because Dalvin Cook was still a top 10 running back last year, and it was mainly just the contract situation that forced his way out of Minnesota. It seems like this was inevitable to happen. It was either going to the Jets or Miami. Those were the two that everyone was like, it's going to be here. Unfortunately, do you? How do you guys view Brees Hall for this season? Because for me personally, it's still a negative because you added someone with an immense talent, but long term, I think Brees is still fine. It just might be hard to draft him in a few weeks when we do our drafts, knowing that Dalvin Cook is primed and ready to go and he's going to see the ball. They didn't pay him all that money to let him be a backup. So it could be closer to like a 50-50 timeshare in this team. So what do you guys think on Dalvin Cook and Brees Hall?
Yeah, I mean, with all these players, these teams aren't paying them for fun. They're paying them to play football. Same thing with Zeke. Same thing with Dalvin Cook. I don't mind the Dalvin Cook one as much, mainly because Brees is coming off that injury. They're going to want to ease him in. They don't want to rush. They don't want to. He's their go-to guy right now, so they don't want to obviously hurt him and affect his long-term value, his long-term playability. So getting Dalvin Cook on the 1 year deal makes sense. Lets them still compete this year with Aaron Rodgers there. Granted, this year in a redraft perspective, I definitely Hall falls for me since Cook is there. But for in a dynasty perspective, if you can buy Hall for cheap for some of these owners that are panic selling because Cook's there, uh, buy him up because I think he's going to be healthy pretty soon. That keeps saying he's going to be ready for week one, and as soon as Cook's out the door, it's Hall's backfield. So
100% agree there. 100% agree. This is the time if you're not competing this season, definitely try to go buy Brees Hall.
Yeah, you sell Dalvin Cook immediately to someone because he could be done at this year. I know an episode or two ago we were kind of talking about like should we view these guys that are on their second finishing up their second contract, at the age cliff near running back, like should we just think of these guys as just guys, not like immense talents? Um that's kind of it, it's hard with Dalvin Cook because he didn't show that he was really slowing down last year, but we have seen it in the past where running back hits that wall and they're done out of the league. So that's kind of the time bomb is ticking on Dalvin Cook. So if you have him, In Dynasty, I'd be trying to ship him off for anything you can get because having two players, Dalvin Cook and Brees Hall, on the same team with the amount of talent that both of them possess, it's going to lower them. But Hall is their future. They gave Cook a 1 year deal, and he's done after this year with the Jets because they're not going to sign him back having Brees Hall. So it either works, they get a ring, and then okay, thank you for your service. You may go elsewhere, or they're going to have Hall. Either way, it's going to be one of those situations where I'm just going to be kind of out. Um, but yeah, Hall definitely takes a hit for me, which sucks because he's a really good talent. We're all very excited, despite the injury concerns, just because the 4 game sample size was amazing. But all right, so without further ado, we're going to do a mock draft today, going head to head to head. Randomize the picks. We are going to be doing a half PPR. We got 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, flex, and we're going to draft 6 bench spots. We got 13 rounds to go through. I am drafting from the 101. We have Rich at the 106 and Joe at the 108. So there will be some sniping, and I have to figure out who I'm going to draft from. Who am I going to draft at the 101? So let's dive into this. I'm going to hit start, and we're going to figure it out. Okay, so I am on the clock. Obviously, this is a pretty easy pick. You can go Justin Jefferson, which is the typical one. You can go Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey. Like those are who is probably going to go 1 through 3. For me, it's Justin Jefferson. I can't go without Justin Jefferson. Um,
Wow, not Tim
it's just
Patrick.
he ain't there yet, man. Give it another year. We'll see how it goes. But all right, so we got Justin Jefferson. He's just going to be. He has a higher probability of being the wide receiver one than a lot of these guys, just because that offense throws a ton. He's a big part of it. Outside of injury, I feel like top 3 wide receiver is pretty much a lock. So Justin Jefferson goes to me at the 101, then Austin Eckler, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey, Cooper Cup at the 105. Rich, you're up at the 106.
That's a tough pick because I'll tell you a lot of mock drafts I've been doing. Travis Kelsey fans made the 106, and that's a very much pivotal position that if you can get the heads up on is always a plus. Other options really that I'm looking at would be Tyreek Hill as my first wide receiver. Bijan would probably be my first running back here, but still, I feel like just the difference maker that Travis Kelsey is, and just for the sake of maybe spicing it up a little bit, I'm gonna take Travis Kelsey here.
Okay, so following Travis Kelsey goes Bijan Robinson right in front of you, Joe. Who
That's
you
okay.
got at the 108?
This might be a little bit of a stretch. Just a lot of the I love Jefferson, Chase, and Cup as like elite wide receivers. Hill I'm a little wary on just because you have Waddle there. It's a lot of competition. Uh, AJ Brown, I like him a lot, but I think I'm gonna pivot. I'm gonna go down a little bit. I'm gonna grab one of my favorite draft picks this year, which is Nick Chubb. I think he's just gonna get immense work in that backfield, and I'm happy to have him on a team.
Yeah, Chubb.
Wow.
The Chubb train is strong this year, pretty much by himself. So he's one of the reasons why I like drafting at the end of the first round because you can pair him with one of these wide receivers that I'm just madly in love with this year. So to recap, the end of the first round, we have Tyreek Hill, Saquon Barkley, Pat Mahomes, then Stephon Diggs. Top of the second, we got AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Derrick Henry, and Jonathan Taylor. I want to pause quick here. With all the contract disputes and everything with Jonathan Taylor, do you like he's been falling in the ADP? Like he used to be a first rounder. Now he's been creeping back, further into the second round. If he shows up to practice in by next week, we'll say next Monday he's back at practice, full go. Are you still drafting him later in the second round, or is he a first round pick for you guys? Joe, what do you think first?
Um, I think he's a first round pick. I honestly like Jonathan Taylor. I would draft Jonathan Taylor over Bijan, and I'd probably call me crazy. I might even draft him over McCaffrey. I'm a big Taylor fan. I think he's an immense talent. He has a pretty clear cut to be the number one there. Um, Bijan's a rookie. He hasn't shown us anything yet. I know there's a lot of hype behind him. I think for spending a first round pick on him in a redraft league might be a little risky for my take when I could grab someone that's proven like Chubb, Eckler, Barkley. But yeah, I would definitely take. I think I'd rather wait for the second for Taylor, but I definitely would take him in a first or second round, 100%.
All right, so you're up with your second round
So
pick
this
here,
one's
sir.
tough. There's two players here, so I'm leaning wide receiver now. I got my hero RB. I don't think I need to go. There's a lot of RBs I can get later in the draft that I'd be very happy with. I'm really right now. I'm looking between Amon-Ra St. Brown and Garrett Wilson for me. I like Devontae Adams a lot. Just the quarterback situation in Las Vegas, I'm not a huge fan of right now. So I think I'm going to go with one of my favorites, which is Garrett Wilson. I think he's going to have a killer year with Aaron Rodgers there, and I think it might be his best season yet.
Yeah, I like that pick. That's a good one. Garrett Wilson could be in the running for a top 5 wide receiver this season, so that's nice. Josh Jacobs goes at the 2-6, followed by Rich's pick. Who are we thinking here?
Yeah, so I mean, I think at this point, you're looking at a couple wide receivers for me, keeping on the trend of just what I believe in this season, and that's that you should kind of take wide receiver a little heavy this season as opposed to the running backs. So there's a couple guys that come to interest. That would be Devontae Adams, of course. Amon Ra is still there for me. I love Amon Ra, but he did get hurt. A little bit of a minor injury, but it's a little concern. And Jalen Waddle is still sitting there as well, which I think he'll have a prolific year. So just looking at the three wide receivers there, I think that's where I'm going to turn. And that would be kind of just looking at the situations at hand. I think Amon Ra is really just the pick there because he's should be surefire. I mean, he may miss week one. I doubt it, but he'll come back in and completely take over as far as who he is. So no question there. Amon Ra for me.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Amon Ra this year. He's going to be great. He's someone I held for a while in our dynasty league, and I'm now hoping to reap the rewards for doing that. But following Amon-Ra St. Brown, we have Mark Andrews, Josh Allen goes. Then we have Devontae Adams, T. Higgins, and I am up with 2 picks at the end of the second round. So having Justin Jefferson really, really helps, and I really enjoy that. He's going to be very stable. Um, this is a pick where I'm I'm looking at just shoring up a couple positions here. So I want to get my running back out of the way. And the one that fell to me here is Tony Pollard. And I'm very excited for what Tony Pollard is going to do this year. Zeke is no longer there. He's pretty much alone. I know Deuce Vaughn has been getting some hype for that preseason game, which rightfully so because it was awesome, but he's still itty bitty baby boy. So it's going to be hard to see him produce for fantasy. Um, that in a way that takes away from Tony Pollard. And Ronald Jones is suspended. Probably, I don't even think he's going to make the team. Then you got Malik Davis and Rico Dowdle. So no guys that are really threatening his workload. So that's going to be the first pick, Tony Pollard. Second pick, this is a guy that I am really, really glad that fell to me. And he's someone that I'm very high on and I'm trying to draft in every league I'm in just because his upside is tremendous. Former teammate of Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave is going to be my pick because I don't care that it's now Derek Carr there. I still think the Saints are going to give him the ball. Michael Thomas has been a question mark for the past seems like 10 years, but Chris Olave is good at football, and he has immense upside, in my opinion. And I would love to draft him, so I did. Following Chris Olave in the third round, we have Jalen Waddle, Najee Harris, Brees Hall, Ramondre Stevenson, and Rich. You're up at the 306.
So, I mean, a couple of players I'm really looking at here, but it sucks that Harris, Hall, and Stevenson all went before. Although Hall, I'm not too worried about just because now with Cook being there, it's whatever. Stevenson and Harris, though, a little bit disappointed that they went. I would love to have them as my RB1s. But there's just one more, I think, at this point. I'm okay with grabbing. I wouldn't like to take a QB this early, as there's a couple of quarterbacks in the later rounds I'm more comfortable with as well. And some of the wide receivers here don't really interest me. There is maybe a couple, I would say. Um, I don't know. I'm kind of looking through a couple options here, and I think at this point I could take a running back just because I don't have that position situated just yet. Could continue to punt it down the line, show you guys what a zero RB would look like. And I just might do that where I'll take my second wide receiver here, somebody that I actually am really more so high on this season than previous. I'll take DK Metcalf.
Well, that was going to be my pick.
And the sniping begins. It's fun. I can't wait to do this for real in our home league. The shout out to the Heroes of Fantasy Football League.
I hate everyone that's at my spot right now. I don't like Devonta Smith. I don't think he's going to repeat what he did last year. I don't like Etienne with Tanks Bigsby there. Seeing a lot of work there. I don't like taking a quarterback that early. So that's like the top 4 picks of the draft board right now.
He's on tilt.
I'm very tilted. I guess
Well, while you're deciding, we got Jalen Hurts went between DK and your pick. So top 3 quarterbacks off the board.
I'm gonna reach here. I'm gonna reach for someone I think that's gonna have a killer season, and that is Calvin Ridley. Finish up my 2 wide receivers there, and yeah.
Okay.
Dirty dog. I was waiting for him to come back to me. I thought he might have, but I
You thought he would snipe it from, yeah.
it is a reach, but I really don't think, like, looking back on this season, I feel like we're gonna be like 4th, 5th round for Calvin Ridley. That was a steal. So, like, yes, you're drafting at potentially his ceiling, but I am so excited for what he's gonna do this year on this offense. So I say great pick. A little early, but I still think it's gonna pay off for
A
you. I
little
don't think it's
early,
gonna be
but I'd rather have him than Devonta Smith for sure. And Debo Samuel, I was almost taking, but there's just too many mouths there to feed with him, Ayuk, and Kittle. I'd rather have Ridley and Kirk as being like the main 2 guys.
yeah.
It falls back to me here. So I got my 2 wide receivers. I got my running back. I could go for another flex play with Hopkins there. I do like Hopkins this season, but I'm gonna grab my second running back, which is my favorite out of there's Miles Sanders, Damian Pierce, and J.K. Dobbins there. I think any of the 3 are going to see a lot of work. I don't like Damian Pierce as much this year with having a rookie quarterback there. I feel like they're going to fall behind often in games and have to be passing to try to make up for it. So I'm going to actually grab J.K. Dobbins. He's back at camp. I've heard great reports, and I actually just traded for him in Dynasty. So why not?
Yeah, I saw that. So just to recap what happened at the end of the third. So Joe went with Calvin Ridley, then it was Joe Burrow, Travis Etienne, Devontae Smith, and Jameer Gibbs to round out round 3. Then to start round 4 was Lamar Jackson, Debo Samuel, Ken Walker, Joe Mixon. Joe's pick with J.K. Dobbins. DeAndre Hopkins went next, and Rich, you're up next. What are you thinking?
So there's a couple picks here, you know. Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, 2 wide receivers that kind of pull out to me off the bat. But I do have 2 wide receivers, and I believe we are doing similar format to just like how we are in Heroes, which is 2 wide receivers, 2 running back. Yeah.
Yes.
So With that, I mean, I do have two starting wide receivers, a starting tight end. I would like to address some of the other positions, as that's kind of how I look at the drafts a little bit. So Aaron Jones is there at the board before kind of any other options pop out to me. I think Aaron Jones is still okay this season. I think you're still all right to have a decent amount of a workload there. So I haven't taken a running back yet. I will jump into the Aaron Jones train.
All right, following Aaron Jones went Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, Justin Fields, Keenan Allen right before me. That kind of hurts because that was going to be my pick. Well, as soon as you were talking about Keenan, I'm like, please don't, please don't, please don't. And sure enough, you didn't. But Team 2 decided to pull the rug out from under me. So that's kind of a bummer. But looking at the board here, I can go tight end. I'm kind of not in on tight end early unless it's for Darren Waller. Um, it's either I get Mark Andrews in the second to third, or I'm going for Darren Waller. If not, if I don't get any of those two guys, I'm just punting the position and I'll figure it out later in the stream because that position is always similar to that. So it's hard to really get one of these guys. Guys that go rounds 4 to 6 typically don't hit ADP. So you're just going to play the streaming game anyway. So I can go with the second running back here. I'm looking at that's what I'm going to do. So I'm pretty high on this running back, even though he switched teams this year and is dealing with a groin injury. I don't really care. I think his upside is pretty high despite having a rookie quarterback, and this running back is Miles Sanders. That's going to be my first pick out of these two. Then I'm going to follow it up with. Now, this is someone where I was a little bit lower than you guys on going into the offseason. Had a huge trade that happened during right before the NFL draft. Goes to a team that didn't really pass the ball a ton. Has a what everyone is basically projecting as a top quarterback this year in fantasy. I'm gonna grab the new wide receiver one for the Chicago Bears. I'm gonna go with DJ Moore as my wide receiver 3. I've been growing on him lately, so I'm excited to see what he's gonna do. Even if this team doesn't pass a ton, they're gonna have to pass more than they did last year, and DJ Moore is going to be the benefactor of that. So I'd rather take the shot in the you know 5th round. So then we got Justin Herbert, TJ Hawkinson, Drake London, Christian Watson. Rich, you're up for your 5th round pick.
So in the fifth round, I mean, there's a couple of different ways I can go here. I could definitely have a second running back added to my team. Damian Pierce is on the board. I do like Damian this year. I do understand there's other options there, but overall, I'm still okay with him being, my second running back. So he's there. Jerry Judy is also there, who I believe is going to be a very much a benefactor. But with two very much dominant tight or wide receivers that I have, I don't know. I'm kind of a little bit across the board here. Um, Overall, I think there's one player that's standing out to me, and I think I'm okay to take him here. This player, I think, is going to have a step into his prolific year. He should have pretty much a dominant season. So I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence.
As soon as I heard you say stepping into a dominant year, I was like, he's
Oh
going to. Are you sniping Joe again? Ooh,
God,
it's gonna
man,
be fun.
that's two picks in a row. I was gonna be. I would
Right?
talk about the stack with Ridley. I have no
I
idea
know.
now. I hate you.
It it's hard when that happens. Well, while you're figuring this out, so Rich, you and I in our main league have drafted next to each other. I looked today
Last three
since
seasons.
yes, since 2021, and last year especially, we did a mock draft right before, we did a mock draft episode, just you and me, before our draft. So we kind of had an idea what we were going to do. what our
Hmm.
approaches were, and we had the same thoughts. But unfortunately, we drafted right next to each other, and you sniped Justin Jefferson right out from under me. We both had the idea
Right.
going wide receiver heavy. And how did that work out for you, that
Well,
draft last year?
I currently have the trophy sitting right over there, and that's how that went.
Yeah. And I barely made the playoffs because I got forced into Dalvin Cook, which wasn't a fun time. But as we digress, Damian Pierce went right after the T Law pick. You still tilting over there?
Yeah, there's no one I like here. I hate this. Screw it. Take Judy.
So Jerry Judy's the pick. I mean, that offense should be better because it was a
Can't
train
get
wreck
any
last year.
worse.
Yeah. So like rock bottom's already been hit. So you're bouncing up. Following that pick is George Kittle, Cam Akers, Dallas Goddard, Brandon Ayuk finishes out the fifth round. We have Alexander Madison to start the sixth, followed by Connor, Kyle Pitts, Dalvin Cook, and you're back up on the clock.
I'm gonna grab Kamara. I know he's suspended a couple games, but nice fill-in running back. Could be. I think if without the suspension, he goes a little earlier, and I think people are sleeping on him just because of that suspension.
Yeah, he's been getting a lot of real good buzz in this offseason, in camp and everything. Like they're saying he's just lights out better than everyone else. And Kendry Miller is now out with what was it, a knee injury in the same knee that was injured going into the draft season. So um, it's going to be Kamara's show. Jamal Williams is a capable fill-in, but all things considered, I really do think that Kamara is. I feel like he's going to be shooting up draft boards, especially with the Kendrick Miller news. So I like that pick. I think you mitigated enough risk. He's late enough where even if he doesn't work out for a little bit, it's still okay. So then we got Darren Waller went in between you and Rich. Rich, you're on the clock.
So with this pick, I think I'm going to circle back to running back here. There's one that stands out, and that's Swift here. I've seen the work from Penny. Apparently, he's working with the second team. There's a lot of question marks there, but I don't know. Swift seems to be kind of more intriguing, and from what I've seen, I'm okay with, I think, taking him really here at the middle of the sixth. So between the other running backs, I may jump into this later, but overall, Swift to me right now, I have faith what's going on in Philly. So
Yeah, he's gonna be one of those teams where you're gonna be in or out. There's no gonna be like, you're not gonna toe the line with him. It's either you are all for him or you have been burned by him in the past. That would be me, and you're gonna be out. So, well, it's really gonna come down to that draft cost. So, following the Swift pick, we have David Montgomery, Michael Pittman Jr., Chris Godwin, Mike Williams went right ahead of me again. I was thinking, once Keenan Allen went, I figured I can go with Mike Williams. Looking at team two, they went Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, and Mike Williams. They're all in on the Chargers, which this year might be a good thing
Oh,
because they're
I like Team 10. They have 5 running backs.
yeah, it's crazy things happen in drafts. So maybe we can do a fun show where we kind of throw a
I'll
little
value Joe. Look it up.
yeah, don't start your draft with 5 running backs. That's you're going to be in a hole. So now I'm
Definitely.
here at the end of the sixth round pick. Uh, I have Justin Jefferson. I have my RB1. I have what I think could be a very solid RB2. This is where it's hard for me because I really wanted Ridley, but I'm looking at the draft right now and I see Christian Kirk staring me in the face. And although I'm very excited for Calvin Ridley for what he's going to do on this team, Christian Kirk was a wide receiver one last year. He was the wide receiver one for the Jaguars, and he got a little banged up last year. He's been doing pretty well on all the reports I read in camp. So I'm pretty high on Cook this year. I do think that the Jaguars could have 2 top 24 wide receivers come the end of, the season, and I think Kirk is going to be one of those guys. So I'm gonna draft Christian Kirk here. And then this is where I probably need to start looking in some of these onesie positions. There's a couple guys here that I like. Tyler Lockett is just perpetually underrated in every draft we do because he's always the same. Been drafted outside, the top 4 or 5 rounds, and finishes in better than some people inside the top 4 rounds. So he's someone I'm kind of leaning towards, but I do like taking the chance. Now, this is something I don't want to do necessarily, but I kind of want to get a piece of this. So I got James Cook on this offense, who should be better than what he did last year. Devin Singletary is no longer there. I do like what he possesses as far as a skill set. It just depends on what he can do between the 20s because he's not going to be a goal line back. But I'm going to take the shot. Having 2 running backs that I believe will have a major workload, I'm shooting for upside on this pick. So James Cook is going to be the pick here. All right. Then we have Jackson Smith and Jigba goes next, followed by Javonte Williams, Evan Engram, and Deshaun Watson. Just want to touch on it quick. Are you guys in or out on Javonte Williams this year? Because his injury was pretty massive. I know all the reports say he's off the pup. He's back. He's ready to go. Are you just all in, or are you going to take a step back and see what happens and just be willing to be wrong on him this year?
I'm in. I'm in on him. I think he's good. I think he's ready to rumble, and I would draft him for sure.
What about you, Rich?
Kind of 50-50. I'm still not sure. Obviously, you love to hear that he's back and all that, but I mean, normally running backs that come off injury right off the bat necessarily do very well. So, I mean, might be an opportunity to buy low before he kind of makes a resurgence. I would say probably by the end of the season, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the top. You know, he is a great back, but injuries suck. So,
Yeah, I'm just nervous. I don't want to draft him. I'd rather not be stuck. I'm willing to be wrong with him because that injury was
sure.
massive and the timeline was kind of short, from when it happened to now. And I'm just willing to be wrong and not have that risk on my team. So, who you have
Sure.
here in the 7th round?
Well, I mean, you kind of touched on it, and I thought you were going to take him. Tyler Lockett is still sitting there at the halfway through the 7th round, and for me, I feel like at that point, that's a little bit of a steal. Tyler Lockett is being underrated. He should still be a very dominant force. We know what Tyler Lockett can do. So for me, looking at the way that I've drafted this draft so far, I need to touch a little bit more to the wide receiver, as I feel like that's a dominant force this season. Tyler Lockett is easily the pick.
All right, then Marquise Hollywood Brown went next. Joe, you're back up in the 7th round.
Yeah, I'm leaning. I'm gonna take either a running back or wide receiver. Still building that depth at that position. I'll get my tight end later. I'll get my quarterback later. It's not something I need to rush. Same as what Matt's doing at 1.1. There's no rush to get some of these players. I know last year we saw those godlike quarterbacks. If you didn't have one of the top ones, you were kind of dead in the water. I don't think that's going to be a repeat of this year. I think it's going to be the points are going to be more evenly spread out between them. A couple guys I'm looking at here. I'm looking at Rashad White, who's the clear back number one over there in Tampa. I'm also looking at Mike Evans and Deontay Johnson. Uh, in my opinion, they're both wide receiver ones on their team. I know people argue for Pickens, but I know a lot of us on the show agree we're not although an immense talent and incredible catches, he does not get a lot of separation, which it's not what I want to see in a wide receiver. It's a tough call. I'm looking at some of the wide receivers and running backs I can get later. I like some of the wide receivers later. Don't like a lot of the running backs later, so I'm going to just go ahead and grab Rashad White have 4 starting running backs and be able to fluctuate in between them.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was. This is a part of the draft where you're looking, and a lot of the you got to look at the replacement value of the position. Look ahead it, at certain positions. You got to be able to know: do you like this position better in this location, or like just pick the guy that sticks out to you more? And if there's a guy you like, go get him. Like fantasy's supposed to be fun, so you don't want to be rooting for a player you don't believe in. So just at this point, just forget ADP typically because you just want to get your guys and go for them. So after the Rashad White pick, we had Mike Evans, George Pickens, who I thought you did a very good job of discussing our how we feel about him. Then Isaiah Pacheco and Deontay Johnson finishing out the 7th round. We have Jahan Dotson, Traylon Burks, Jordan Addison, and Brandon Cooks to start the 8. So
I had one time
who?
had all those on my dynasty team. It's funny.
So
Um,
what are you thinking now, Joe?
so now I'm thinking I could grab my quarterback here. I still think there's some that I could wait on. I think I'm gonna grab a wide receiver here. The ones that Darius Tony's the top one, and I won't touch him with a 10-foot pole. Uh, there's Quentin Johnson, who I like, but he's also buried in the depth chart behind some top tier talent. You have Gabe Davis, who had a very disappointing season last year, and I'm hoping he bounces back. But I'm actually gonna reach here a little bit. I'm gonna grab Zay Flowers. I think he's gonna be uh, the number. I think he's gonna be the number 2 behind OBJ. I think Bateman might fall to the number 3, and he's only one injury away from even jumping either of those guys. Um, Big fan of him. He's getting a lot of hype in training camp. I like him, and I think he's gonna do pretty well in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. He has a very easy path to being fantasy relevant in his rookie season on this team. So that's a great pick. AJ Dillon went next. Rich, you're back up. Where are your thoughts on this next pick?
Well, so for me, I already have a tight end and a quarterback. And as far as ADP goes, Dak Prescott and Pat Freiermuth are up next. So for me, I avoid those two out. So I was with starting from there. Antonio Gibson's on there. Kadarius Toney, as Joe mentioned, is as well there. You have players on the bat as far as Quentin Johnson, Gabe Davis, Charbonnet, if you believe in Charbonnet as well, and all that. So I mean, I already have 3 wide receivers. I think I'm pretty set um, where I am here, but there's something about the Chiefs offense that entices me to, if I can just have Kadarius Toney sitting on my bench, and let's just say he becomes the wide receiver
That's
one
all he's gonna do,
on
Richie.
on that offense. Well, then I think in the 8th round that Kadarius Toney could be very much a steal. So I will take the chance on Kadarius Toney.
All right. Well, after Rich just wasted his pick, we have Antonio Gibson.
Wow.
And you also have Kelsey, so you're really
Yeah,
dipping into that Kansas
chief
City,
up,
huh?
huh?
Oh, come on. As if the Kansas City Chiefs ain't great. Get out of here.
All right, so Antonio Gibson, Quentin Johnston, another one that I was hoping fell to me that did not. Uh, Gabe Davis, was thinking about him too, and Pat Fryermuth. Now, this is the point in the draft where I'm looking at the board ahead of me, and I don't have a quarterback, and neither do 2 other teams. So this is where I'm gonna have to wait for 24 picks to come back to get a quarterback, and there's someone sitting here that I do think is going to be pretty good this season, despite all the interceptions last year. So I'm gonna go with Dak Prescott because although that offense is changing, they no longer have Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator. I do still think it's going to be fine. It's not panic in the streets, no going crazy. CeeDee Lamb is still there. They brought in Brandon Cooks. Michael Gallup is now healthy, another year removed from injury. Tony Pollard can catch out of the backfield. I feel like everyone's blowing it way out of proportion. What Mike McCarthy said about trying to run the ball and rest his defense, because all the moves they made this offseason say the exact opposite. Bringing in that wide receiver and Brandon Cooks, having a steady wide receiver room now, and it's they didn't really bring in anyone at running back except for Ronald Jones, who's probably not even going to make the team. He's probably going to get cut. So I'm fine with Dak Prescott. I think the ability is there. I'll probably pair him with a second quarterback later in the draft, just in case. But that's where I'm going to go for there. Now, I already like my wide receivers. My running backs, it's a position that always gets injured, so I'd rather shoot for the moon here, and I'm pretty excited for the Seattle Seahawks as well. So I'm gonna go with Zach Charbonnet, just because pass catching upside, and that offense should be good. So scoring potential, and Kenneth Walker is already banged up. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that he misses time and Zach Charbonnet comes in and just shows the offense that, hey, give me the ball because I can play. So this late in the draft, what ninth round, I'm all for ninth round Zach Charbonnet. So then we got Brian Robinson, Rashad Penny, David Njoku, Michael Thomas. Rich, you're back up.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just looking. I think at this point, I have a lot of positions filled. So for me, I'm going to turn back to the running back position, and the two top guys that pull out to me right now. Jamal Williams should still see a lot of touchdowns, potential, touches, all that. So, but as far as what's going on over there, I don't know if he's really the RB1. Whereas as of right now, I see the RB1 path for Khalil Herbert. And with my pick, I'm going to take him. Great running back there. Obviously, Justin Fields has some question marks as far as passing, but with the running game there, I think that's pretty solid. So I think for a third running back on my team, I like Khalil Herbert.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a stable pick, a stable running back, because there is some risk around him, but I do think he's clearly the RB1 on the Bears. Despite the jokes that's Justin Fields, but he's going to have a role. He's going to be first man up to basically it's his job to lose. If he comes out and does well, which he's done better than David Montgomery in Chicago in the past, there's nothing that says he shouldn't continue to do that. So to get him another running back with starter potential in the ninth round is perfect. So I like that. Anthony Richardson went next. So I know he was just named the week one starter for the Colts. So that's going to be exciting. Joe, where are you thinking now?
So my thought process, I'm looking at Team 10. They have no quarterbacks and two wide receivers. So they're taking one of the two. And I see on the board Tua and Juju. And I think I'm going to take Juju. He's the clear-cut one in the Patriots. I've heard they're getting massively involved in the play schemes there. So, and this late in the draft, just another solid piece for my team.
All right. Then we have James Williams went. Jamal Williams, sorry. Can't read apparently. Jamal Williams went, followed by Kirk Cousins, then Tua Tagovailoa, a second quarterback for Team 11 there, and then Elijah Moore, followed by Damian Harris, Samaje Perine, Cortland Sutton, and Adam Thielen, who I know is someone that you like to target late in drafts as well.
I
But
do.
you cannot have him.
That's okay. I mean, looking at my team, I got Nick Chubb and Dobbins as my running backs, and Garrett Wilson and Ridley as my wide receivers. Right now, I have Judy in my flex, which I could swap out with any of my other pieces. And I have two running backs with Kamara, Rashad White, and Zay Flowers and Juju on my bench. So I think right now with running backs and wide receivers, I'm pretty stacked up. So I'm going to look to fill my team up right here. and I'm gonna grab the stack with Garrett Wilson, and I'm gonna get burned again by Aaron Rodgers this year.
Shout out to the Guillotine League. The reason why you lost week 1.
He was
That's fun.
part of the reason, but
Part
it
of
was
it,
also
yeah.
Derrick Henry. So thanks guys.
Yeah, week 1 was not good for them last year. But in between you and Rich went Jameson Williams, who I think it's a 5-game suspension. So he's going to be on ice for a little bit, but he did go down with an injury today. So we're going to see what that is. It's been frustrating if you're a Jameson Williams owner. So, Rich, what are your
I am.
thoughts?
As a Jameson Williams owner, it's a little bit frustrating to see, but nonetheless, the guy has suspension, so I'm hoping by the time he gets back, he'll be okay. I'm not also disappointed because I do have depth at wide receiver. I don't like any of the running backs really here, per se, except for maybe one, which I'll talk about in a minute. But I really was hoping that, Williams was going to fall to me, just because I do have the depth at wide receiver on my team, per se, to put Jameson there and sit him down, as he is probably one of the only receivers that can return a higher value at this point in the draft. So just looking at the options there, I guess I really just don't like anything. I'm still at the point of where I don't need another tight end or a quarterback. So for me, I'm looking wide running back or wide receiver. The wide receiver I want to take is off the board. I'm going to take the running back, and that's Devon A-Chain. I think that there is a potential there. The man is fast, so a good week or two, maybe he can explode on my flex spot, and I'll be okay with that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch how that backfield shakes out because I feel like I think the episode we did going into last year, our questions episode, I feel like it was the Miami Dolphins backfield we were trying to figure out, and I think we were all wrong. So, um, following your pick with Devon A-Chain was Elijah Mitchell. Then we have Odell Beckham Jr., Dalton Schultz, followed by Geno Smith. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of hoping Geno fell to me because I was gonna take him here, just as insurance for Dak Prescott if I'm wrong on him. But this is where I got to get my tight end, and I'm very excited about his potential. He was one of my buys in an episode or two ago. I'm gonna go with Chigo Conquo. I'm gonna shore up my tight end position, and I'll probably take it again another shot later. There's a couple guys that I am okay with pairing with him. I don't typically do that, but for something like this, just the way the draft is falling, it kind of makes sense to do just so I have some depth and I can kind of take chances uh, later in the season with some of these guys. So with my second pick, it's kind of hard because I don't really need anything. I can wait on some of these guys, but in the event that I have a player that is on a good offense that's going to throw more, we're in the 11th round as well. So I'm going to grab Rashawn Bateman. He's not flashy right now just because, Zay Flowers is there, OBJ is there, Mark Andrews. So who's the wide receiver 2? Who's the wide receiver 3? Um, it's going to be one of those shots I'm willing to take because I do think this offense is going to throw more. And last year we saw the games that Rashad Bateman played. Lamar Jackson was the quarterback 1 or 2 at worst. So it was a lot of fun watching those two connect on deep balls, and all the points went my way until they both got injured. So flashbacks. But we got Dalton Kincaid next, Daniel Jones, Jarek McKinnon, Jacoby Myers. Rich, you're on the clock.
All right. Well, I don't know. I'm a little impartial as to where I am right now. I'm trying to figure what I should do. We're getting to the end here, and so for me, the way I look at it is I have two more picks after this, and so I already addressed tight end, obviously my first pick, and quarterback my fifth pick. So I'm probably going to circle back and see what's left for me as far as at the end. So I'm just looking at value at this point. There's a couple players that stick out to mind. And I think for me, as far as where I'm at, I'm okay with the wide receivers I have. I'm gonna just address the wide receiver position. I'm sorry, the running back position a little more, and that's with Tyler Algier. There is a little bit of a question mark there. I mean, Bijan should really take the bulk of the work, but Tyler was a phenomenal running back last season, an undervalued player, somebody that I think is just, being left for dead. And at that point, I mean, you can find value really at this point at any position. But for what it is, if Bijan were to ever get hurt, or if they would ever realize that they can do a 1-2 punch, Tyler can really, hit you home for where you're picking him in the draft. So I like the pick.
Following that pick was Cole Kmet. Joe, you are up next.
So I really don't need any wide receivers or running backs. My team's pretty stacked on those. So I think I'm looking at the tight ends and quarterbacks. If I want to get my second quarterback or get my first tight end, I think I'm going to reach and grab my first tight end. Uh, Greg Dolch is there, Tyler Higbee, Sam Laporta, Gerald Everett. I think I'm going to go with Tyler Higbee with question marks on Cook health. If Cook was to go down, or Cup, not Cook, Cup. If Cup was to go down, I could see Higbee stepping up in a major way and getting tons of targets.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping you were not going to do because I was hoping he was going to fall to me. But sadly, that's not the case. So, following your Higby pick was Greg Dulcich. We have Alan Lazard, Sky Moore, Jared Goff, then Kendra Miller, Tyler Boyd, Russell Wilson, and Rasheed Rice. You're back up on the clock. You got two more picks.
So I think I'm going to grab my second quarterback here. Bryce Young's there, who I would stay away from in redraft until he proves me otherwise. Kind of like Jordan Love this season. I think he's going to do pretty good. Derek Carr is intriguing. Matt Stafford scares me with his elbow. I think I'm going to reach a little bit here too. I'm going to grab Kenny Pickett. He's been looking good in camp. He's got his weapons there, and I think he's going to take a step forward this year. And just, I don't think he's going to be QB 1, 2, or 3, but I think he's going to put up some pretty solid fantasy numbers.
Yeah, it helps to have an offensive line that's been playing decent compared to last year too. So it's a good pick. Darnell Mooney went next. Rich, who you got?
So, I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at a couple players here, but obviously, as I mentioned previously, for me, it's just about kind of solidifying the position. Um, so looking at my quarterbacks and tight ends, because I'm pretty, sold on who I have as far as wide receivers and running backs. Um, there's a couple of guys, Bryce Young, Jordan Love, Derek Carr, Matt Stafford, that are pretty good players there. I think, can return good value. Um, but there's one player I think that sticks out to me, and I think could really return the numbers here again. And this is kind of where I've been all season or all draft. And so Kyler Murray for me, I'll take behind Trevor Lawrence. I think I'm going to have a dominant team with Trevor Lawrence. And if Murray can come back into some sort of role that I've seen him do before, I think that's a great investment there.
Well, it took 12 rounds, but you sniped me too. I was hoping to grab Kyler just at the back of my bench, just to sit there, put him on
I always
IR,
got to
give him
do
a
it
little
one
flash.
time, Matt. I got to do
Oh
it one
man,
time on you.
yeah, you got to spread the wealth, I guess, huh? Well, that sucks for me. So, following the Kyler Murray pick was Devin Singletary, Raheem Mostert, Zeke Elliott, Deontay Foreman. Now I'm back up on the clock for my last two picks. Um, I can kind of go a couple different ways. Like I really like my wide receiver room and my running back room is solid, but I do think I could use a little bit more depth at this position. So for me, I'm gonna grab Tank Bigsby because if this offense is that good and ETN struggles in any way or gets injured, um, he should be number two, and he will be in line for a pretty big workload. To get him at the end of the 12th round is more than enough upside to make that well worth it. So Tank Bigsby is going to be the pick, and I'm thinking quarterback here, but I don't really like any of them. There's too many questions for me, so
Your
I'm
boy's there
kind of
though.
just done with quarterback.
Gonna do
Or
your
am
boy
I?
dirty like that? You
Who's that?
you drafted him.
Which one?
What do you mean? Which one, Mister C.J. Stroud over there?
Yeah, he's rookie quarterback. I'm kind of out on the rookie quarterbacks. Like I would take the shot on Richardson just because of the rushing capability, but as far as that, it's kind of where it ends. I'm gonna go Sam Laporta here. Get a second tight end, and that's gonna round out my team. He's been getting buzz in camp, and it looks like I just took him from you, Rich. I hope so, because that's great. You snipe me, I snipe back. That's how it works, fantasy baby. But he just I don't like rookie tight ends just because historically they don't really do too much. But I feel like this offense, especially if Jameson Williams is out for a couple games, and if Amon-Ra St. Brown is out a little bit with an injury at all, he's gonna be funneled the targets because he's gonna be the next man up. So it's well worth the risk for me. Uh the end of the round, so we are finishing up round 13 here. Rondale Moore, Jonathan Mingo, Bryce Young, Romeo Dobbs, and Rich. Who are you gonna take now that I stole your boy?
Well, you're right. I was very much looking at Sam Laporta. Obviously, as I mentioned, I was trying to take quarterback and tight end with the last two rounds, and as I took quarterback before and sniped you, I see you've turned around and sniped me as to the probably the top is as far as what's left, right? But I don't know if you necessarily did that, my friend, because I will say this, that as much as I love Laporta, and he has been getting a lot of the first team reps in practice, there's a little bit of concern as to the last in targets in the practice on Friday. I mean, I'm sorry, the preseason game on Friday. I mean, we will see more of him in these next two games. We will see more of what's going on. But there's one other tight end amongst this group here, if I'm going to take one, that has been kind of accumulating a little bit of some rep here. And I don't care if you want to call it a reach, it's the 13th round. There is no such thing as a reach to me at this point. So I've been hearing a lot about Jake Ferguson, and I'm going to take him as my second tight end.
Ah, Fergalicious. Yeah.
Fergalicious.
I mean, they got a history of tight
I'm
ends in
telling you right
Dallas being
now,
pretty darn good, so could be a
I,
good pick.
I'm I'm in on it. I'm in on it. I've got him in a couple leagues. I'm good with it. I think from what I've heard, what I've seen, I'm in. I'm in.
All right, then we got Roshan Johnson. Joe, who is your final pick of this draft?
See, I only have one tight end here. If I wanted to get two tight ends, I think my pick would have been Michael Mayer here. But I think I'm just going to play the waiver wire during the season, grab a tight end on bye week, or play the hot hand. And I think I'm going to take a shot on this guy and could come back. And there's a couple guys here I really like even this late, but I'm gonna grab Kareem Hunt and see if he signs with the Vikings like everyone's speculating, or lands on a team, and then I have another starting, or if not starting, timeshare running back, and hey,
Yeah, it's worth a shot. He could be done, or he could be still have a little bit. Last year was kind of hard to judge that because they didn't use him as much as I typically did. But following that, we have Nico Collins, Joe Everett, Jeff Wilson, and Michael Mayer. So why don't we wrap up our teams and just go through who our teams are, and maybe we'll put it to a vote on our Twitter or X, whatever it is nowadays. I'm kind of still going to call it Twitter. Um, but Joe, why don't you go first? Who's your team?
so my quarterback, I got Aaron Rodgers as my starting quarterback. With my running backs as Nick Chubb and J.K. Dobbins. Wide receivers, I got Garrett Wilson and Calvin Ridley. Tight end Tyler Higbee, and then in my flex right now I have Jerry Judy. Bench spots, I have Kamara, White, Flowers, Juju, Kenny Pickett, and Kareem Hunt.
What about you, Rich?
So my team is Trevor Lawrence to lead the team. My running backs, 1 and 2 are Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, followed by Khalil Herbert, Devon A-Chain, and Tyler Algier as the three bench spots there. Sorry. And then my wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, TK Metcalf, uh, Tyler Lockett, Kadarius Toney as the two there. So a couple different flex options there for myself. And then as far as my backups in the quarterback and the tight end position, Kyler Murray and that would be one Jake Ferguson to back up Travis Kelce just in case.
Alrighty. I got Dak Prescott at quarterback position, followed by Tony Pollard and Miles Sanders at running back, Justin Jefferson and Chris Olave at wide receiver, Chig Okonkwo at tight end, and DJ Moore in my flex. Bench spots are Christian Kirk, James Cook, Zach Charbonnet, Rashad Bateman, Tank Bigsby, and Sam Laporta. So I'm going to post these and see who wins.
Laporta.
Yeah.
Sorry, I like the way you said.
That's how I gotta say it. But yeah, that was fun. I enjoy drafting with you guys. I will not enjoy drafting you guys when it comes time to do our draft for real because there was sniping today, and there sure will be sniping in that as well. So we're gonna be on
It'll
next
happen.
week.
It'll happen. We're
Yeah,
gonna talk about that draft once we do it. Once we do
oh
the
yeah,
actual Heroes of Fantasy draft, we will
yeah.
discuss it, and we will discuss how mad I made both of you.
Well, hopefully we can make you just as mad. So we'll see how that works.
Ah,
It goes both ways, buddy. Let's see. But that's going to wrap things up for us tonight. Everyone enjoy the rest of your week. We'll be back next week. Got another fun episode. I'm not going to spoil it yet, but it's going to be a good one. So tune in next week. See y'all later.
good night.
Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the Heroes FF.